Hello class, so I'm here with you again today to begin preparing over one of the longer review sheets you have. The terms presented in conjunction with the ancient Hebrew terms. So this vocabulary list, which you see in front of you, they have some really important terms, and so we're going to try to go over these fairly concisely. Remember that if you have any other questions about these, my email is always available. You can just reach out to me that way, or you can try to grab hold of me in person, and I'll do my best to help you try to get a really good grade, the best grade you can get personally on your test. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and let's get started. So monotheism, if you think of it, mono means one. So monotheism is worship and belief in one God. Okay, so Christianity is this way, contemporary Judaism is this way. They see God or Yahweh as the one and only God. So monotheism, one God. Okay, a covenant. A covenant is a super strong promise. This covenant was oftentimes made during really important things. You know, it's not just like a pinky promise, it's a really binding, almost like a contract. You know, people are making this really powerful promise for one another. And so you see God making these covenants or these promises with his chosen people, with Hebrews. This idea of chosen people is the concept that the Hebrews thought that God had made a covenant with them so that so long as they worshiped him and obeyed his laws, that he would offer them military protection and would lead them into a land of plenty. So you have this kind of symbiotic relationship in this covenant. You have God who is saying to the Hebrew people, I promise you that I will protect you from other tribes, and I will make you a wealthy and plenteous people, with much land, with many animals. You know, you'll have it really well off, so long as you obey me and you obey my laws, and you remember that I'm your only God. However, in conjunction with that, of course, the Hebrew people would have to continue obeying God, sacrificing to God, you know, obeying all those commandments or laws that he set out for them. So there's those two parts of that covenant, that the chosen people, Hebrew, in order to remain God's favorites, they would have to hold up their end of the bargain. And so relating to that, we come to the idea of Exodus. Exodus, not only is it the second book of the Bible, but it chronicles the Exodus, or the exit, if you think of Exodus meaning exit, of the Jewish people from slavery in Egypt. Oops. Okay, so the Exodus talks about these Jewish people who, whenever Moses comes along, they are freed from slavery and they exit Egypt. So I have some pictures of this. You can see here, this is Moses leading them in the front. You can see all this huge line of Hebrew people is just kind of snaking back into the distance. You can imagine there's a lot of Hebrew people that are leaving Egypt and leaving slavery. That's why it's called the mass exodus, the mass exit, or leaving. And they are going through the Red Sea, which Moses has parted. Let's see if we can find another picture. You get this other picture. You can see them carrying their belongings. You can see them walking along. I don't think that's actually a good picture because that shows the ark, and the ark wouldn't have been there at that time. So just ignore this. Ignore the ark and just see the people walking with their possessions. Oh, here's a better one. Here we go. So you see Moses with his staff, and he is leading these people, this big line of people, out of slavery. So that's what the Exodus is. Okay? So let's talk about the Torah. The Torah in Pentateuch, it refers to 5 scrolls. It is the first 5 books of the Bible. There's a wonderful song that can kind of help you remember it. It goes Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. But I doubt you'll need to know exactly what those 5 books are. If so, that is what they are, though. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. But, you know, so what? So what if there are 5 scrolls? What does that even mean? Why is that important? In short, it is the law. It is super important. The Torah is, to many Jewish people, the most important part of their Bible. It is the law that they have to follow, those commandments that help them remain closer to God. So if you're thinking Torah, think of it as the law. Now, what is the Pentateuch? The Pentateuch is the same thing as the Torah, but it's just the Greek translation of the Torah. Okay? So let's talk about circumcision. And circumcision is a practice that was really, really common for the Jewish people. It is where, as a sign of their devotion to God, the males of the Hebrew community would surgically have their, the foreskin of the penis removed. Okay? And so this surgical removing of that skin of that very delicate area shows their devotion to God. It's kind of this physical symbol of them being connected to God. And obviously, I think would show quite a bit of devotion. So it was super common. Oftentimes, young children would have this done. Sometimes from the times when they were like 8 days old, I believe. That may be wrong, but you get a point where they're quite young, oftentimes whenever this is occurring. Okay, so the temple. Keep in mind that there's one temple. The temple is incredibly special. A special place of worship, center of worship, held in Jerusalem. People would have to travel long distances to get to the temple. So you probably are not going to just pack up your stuff and go on a weekend trip to the temple. You know, it's going to take a lot of work, probably a lot of money to get there. So it's something that's like a pilgrimage. You know, it's really special to go to the temple. Inside this temple, which remember there's only one, there's the Holy of Holies. It is a room in which the Spirit of God was thought to dwell. And so the Spirit of God was thought to be very powerful. So only the high priest, who is like the head honcho priest, you know, he is really important. He is above all the other priests. He's thought to be even closer to God. So only the high priest of the temple is allowed to go into this room, and he can only go in one day a year. Only goes in during the Day of Atonement. What does atonement mean? Atonement means you're looking for almost forgiveness. You know, you're asking forgiveness for a sin, for example. So on the Day of Atonement, this high priest would enter into this Holy of Holies, this single room inside the temple, only on this one day a year, on the Day of Atonement, and he would atone for the sins of the Jewish people. Keep in mind that because that spirit was thought to be so powerful, that a lot of priests, high priests, were thought to have been killed by the spirit, you know, if they were thinking any sinful thoughts. So this Holy of Holies was definitely a very sacred place. Okay, so we are going to go over the next information in the next video.